I wasn't supposed to stay long. Just tighten a few screws, check the brackets, make sure the curtain rod didn't fall again. But the second she opened the door, I knew I wasn't leaving right away. Her name was Mara. She stood there barefoot, in a soft gray sweater that slid off one shoulder. Her hair tied up like she'd meant to do chores, but got distracted somewhere along the way. She smiled when she saw me. Not big, not performative, just that small, tired smile people give when they've been alone too long. "Come in," she said, her voice low, a little hoarse like she hadn't talked much that morning. The place smelled faintly of coffee and rain. The windows were open just enough for the breeze to move the curtains, or what was left of them. One side hung loose, the rod tilted. I set my tool bag down. "Shouldn't take long," I said. "Take your time," she answered too quickly, then added, "No rush." Her living room was a mix of books, plants, and quiet, the kind of quiet that feels earned. I tried to focus on the screws, but she moved behind me, and her reflection caught in the window glass. She was watching me, pretending not to. "You do this often?" she asked. "Fix things?" "Sometimes. Usually smaller stuff." She smiled. "Like broken curtain rods?" "Exactly that." Her laugh was soft. Not loud enough to fill the space, but enough to make me look up. She was closer now, one hand on the edge of the wall, her nails painted a muted red. When I reached up to test the bracket, the rod shifted slightly, and she stepped in beside me, instinctively steadying it with her hand. Her wrist brushed mine. Neither of us moved. Her skin was warm. "It's fine," I said, though I wasn't looking at the curtain anymore. "I can hold it," she whispered. We both stood there, too aware of how close we were. The air changed, thicker somehow. Her perfume was faint, something floral and clean, but it lingered long after she stepped back. I cleared my throat, pretended to check the level. "You've got good taste," I said, nodding at the shelves. Rows of novels, art books, a few old cameras. She looked over her shoulder, smiled faintly. "I used to collect stories, not things." "Still do, maybe," I said without thinking. That made her pause. For a moment, she looked at me like she was remembering something, or someone. Then she turned away and busied herself with a coffee mug on the counter. I tightened the last screw. "All done. Already." Her disappointment slipped out before she caught it. She set the mug down, glanced at me, then the window. The wind picked up again, catching the curtain. It brushed my arm, and for a heartbeat, it felt like her touch again. She came over, inspecting my work. Too close again, this time intentionally. "You did a good job," she said softly. "Better than the last guy." "I try," I said, half smiling. Her eyes held mine longer than they should have. "You do more than try." There was a small silence, the kind that makes your pulse too loud in your own ears. Then she reached up, her hand brushing my shoulder as she adjusted the curtain. Though it didn't need adjusting. I didn't step back. She noticed. Neither of us said anything. The sound of rain started tapping against the window. Steady, deliberate. The room felt smaller. Then, just as she was about to say something, or maybe not say it, a phone started ringing in the next room. Sharp, breaking the quiet. She froze. I exhaled, finally stepping away. Her eyes lingered, caught between invitation and retreat. "Don't go yet," she said, barely above a whisper. And for the first time all day, I wasn't sure if she meant the curtain rod, or me. She didn't call the next day or the day after that. But on the third evening, around sunset, I got a text. "The curtain rod's still a little crooked. Could you come by?" It wasn't. I checked it twice before leaving. But I went anyway. When she opened the door, she looked surprised to see me so soon. Like she'd sent the message and half hoped I wouldn't answer. She wore a loose button-down and jeans, barefoot again. Her hair was damp. She'd just showered. There was something disarming about that. "I didn't expect you this quick," she said. "You sounded urgent." I joked. Her lips curved. "It's the curtain. Can't live with a tilt." We both knew that wasn't the reason. Inside, the light was soft. Early evening, warm, quiet. The air smelled faintly of shampoo and coffee. She'd made 2 mugs, though she hadn't asked if I wanted one. "Sit," she said, motioning toward the couch. I did. For a while, she fussed with her mug, tracing her thumb around the rim before she spoke. "You remind me of someone," she said finally. "My son's age, actually." I laughed softly. "Should I take that as a compliment?" "I'm not sure," she said, meeting my eyes. "He's kind, like you, but a little careless." She turned away then, maybe realizing she'd said too much. I didn't ask about the son or the ex-husband, but I could see it, the faint outline of solitude in her posture, the practiced calm of someone who's used to doing everything alone. She asked about my work, my friends, where I lived. I told her bits and pieces, nothing heavy. But the more I talked, the more she watched quietly, like she was listening for something I wasn't saying. At one point, she reached for the curtain rod herself. "Maybe I should have done it," she said, standing on her toes, stretching slightly. Her shirt lifted just enough for me to see the small scar along her ribs. Pale old. I looked away too late. She noticed. When she turned, her face softened. Not angry, just aware. "You shouldn't stare," she said gently. "Sorry. It's fine." A pause. "It's just old stories." There was something in her tone, a tiredness I recognized. We both stood there, too close again. Her hand brushed mine as she lowered her arm, just enough to feel the warmth of her skin. Neither of us pulled back. "I used to think getting older meant getting used to quiet," she said, her voice barely audible. "Turns out, you just get better at pretending you don't mind it." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. I just stood there, my fingers still near hers. She turned, half smiling, as if to erase what she'd just admitted. "Anyway, the curtain's straight now." "It was always straight," I said softly. That stopped her. Our eyes met again, no jokes this time, no pretending. The space between us seemed to hum. Her breath brushed my chin when she exhaled. I didn't move. Neither did she. Then, slowly, she reached out. Not to touch, not yet. Just tracing her fingers close enough that I could feel the air shift. "Thank you for coming," she said, voice trembling just enough to give her away. "I didn't really come for the curtain," I said. She smiled. Small, sad, knowing. And finally let her hand rest on my shoulder. It was nothing, and everything. The moment hung there, fragile, suspended, until she drew her hand back. "Next time," she whispered, "bring fewer tools." It started raining again the next week, the kind of cold drizzle that made the whole city feel quieter. I was halfway through a sandwich when her name lit up my phone. "Can you stop by?" The window's leaking this time. I didn't even finish eating. When I arrived, she was on the floor near the window, a towel pressed against the sill. The rain traced thin lines down the glass. "I swear this house wants to fall apart," she said, glancing up at me. "I'm starting to think you just like excuses," I said before I could stop myself. She looked at me for a moment, too long, then looked away. "Maybe." We worked in near silence. I tightened the latch while she held the flashlight, close enough that I could smell her perfume again. Something faintly citrus and warm. Every time she leaned in, her shoulder brushed mine. It wasn't accidental. "Doesn't bother you?" she asked suddenly. "What doesn't?" "Being here, with me." Her tone was steady, but her hand trembled slightly as she held the light. I hesitated. "Should it?" She let out a soft laugh, but it didn't sound amused. "People talk. They always have. I just forget sometimes that I'm not supposed to give them anything to talk about." I wanted to say something, that it didn't matter, that nobody had to know, but the words stuck. Instead, I reached for the towel she was still clutching. Our fingers met halfway. Neither of us moved. The air tightened. Her gaze dropped to my hand, still covering hers. The flashlight slipped from her other hand and hit the floor, spinning until the beam landed on us, her face half in shadow, half light. "You should go," she whispered, but she didn't move back. I should have. I didn't. Outside, thunder rolled softly. Inside, everything felt suspended, breath, time, sense. She looked up at me, eyes wide, guarded but open in a way I hadn't seen before. I don't even know what I'm doing, she said under her breath. Yeah, I said. Me neither. Then came the sound, a sharp knock on the door. We froze. Her head turned toward the sound, panic flashing across her face. It's probably Claire, she whispered. My neighbor. She drops by sometimes. She stepped back, too fast. Her hand brushed my chest as she passed, steadying herself. My heartbeat thudded against her palm. She felt it. I know she did. Stay here, she mouthed, before slipping down the hallway. From where I stood, I could hear voices, hers calm and polite, the other woman's casual and oblivious. I caught fragments. Coffee sometime. Still raining, he's helping with repairs. When the door finally closed, Mara leaned against it, exhaling like she'd been holding her breath the whole time. You should have told me, she said, still facing away. Told you what? That you make it hard to think straight. She turned around then, rain light glinting off her damp hair. I stepped closer without meaning to. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then back up. Don't, she whispered, but her voice wasn't sure. I'm not doing anything, I said. Exactly, she murmured. For a second it felt inevitable, the space between us collapsing, the air thick with everything we weren't saying. Then she pulled back, just barely, enough to keep the line from breaking. Still, when I left that night, her hand brushed mine at the door, brief, deliberate, and the touch burned all the way home. Neither of us had said goodbye. For 3 days we didn't talk. No messages, no visits, just silence, thick enough that I started to believe maybe that was the end of it. Then one night she called. No pretext this time, just my name quiet on the other end of the line. Eli, she said, can you come over? I didn't ask why. I just went. When she opened the door, she looked different. Not composed, not guarded. The soft poise she usually carried was gone, replaced by something rawer. Her eyes were tired, her hair loose, the kind of undone that happens when someone stops trying for a moment. I shouldn't have called, she said. But you did. Yeah. She moved aside. I stepped in. The house was dim, lit only by a single lamp. Outside, the wind pressed against the windows, making the curtains shift like slow breaths. There was wine on the table, half a glass already gone. I keep telling myself to stop, she said, not looking at me. To stop thinking about this. I waited, not sure what this meant, though we both knew. I hate how young you are, she said finally. How easy you make it look to feel something. Her voice cracked on feel. I stepped closer, slow enough that she could stop me. She didn't. Mara, I said softly. It doesn't feel easy. She looked up then, and whatever restraint she'd built over the weeks just broke. You have no idea what people would say, she whispered. I've already lived that kind of judgment once. I can't. I reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. My fingers hesitated near her cheek, close enough to feel the warmth of her breath. You think I care about that? I said. You should. Her voice trembled, but she leaned into my hand anyway, just a fraction, as if her body had stopped listening to her reasons. Silence stretched between us. I could hear her breathing shallow, uneven. My pulse matched it. You shouldn't be here, she said. Then tell me to leave. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Instead, she stepped closer, her hands finding my shirt, gripping it just enough to steady herself. Every time you're near me, she whispered, I forget how to be careful. I swallowed hard. Maybe we're past careful. Her eyes lifted to mine. There was a flicker of defiance, then fear, then something heavier, surrender, maybe. I don't know how to stop wanting this, she said. The words hit like heat. I could smell the faint trace of her perfume, feel the tremor in her hands as they rested against my chest. My fingers brushed the inside of her wrist, her pulse racing against my touch. For a moment, everything tilted, the air, the room, the distance. We were so close I could see the faint freckles across her collarbone, the shine of her lip where she'd bitten it. I leaned in, just enough that her breath caught. Mara! Her eyes fluttered shut. Then a sudden knock. Hard, fast. She flinched, stepping back like waking from a dream. The sound came again, insistent this time. Her voice was barely a whisper. Don't move. She turned toward the door, one hand still gripping the edge of my sleeve, as if she hadn't decided whether to let go. And just before she did, she looked back at me, eyes wide, mouth parted, and said the one thing that made the air between us stop moving entirely. Stay. The knock kept echoing long after it stopped. Mara stood frozen by the door, one hand on the handle, the other still clutching the edge of my sleeve. When she finally opened it, a familiar voice slid through the gap. Hey, Mom? You weren't answering. My stomach dropped. A young man stood there, damp from the rain, backpack slung over one shoulder. He froze the instant he saw me. Oh, he said. Didn't know you had company. Mara's breath hitched, barely audible, but I felt it. Her son. This is Eli, she said too fast. He's just helping with repairs. The words landed heavy. He nodded once, slow, suspicion flickering behind his polite half-smile. Didn't know you hired help this late, he said. Mara's grip on the door tightened. It's been leaking again. He stepped inside before she could stop him. His gaze moved from me to the wine on the table, the second glass, the way Mara's sweater slipped from one shoulder. I could almost hear his thoughts forming. Right, he said finally. Window problems. I tried to step back, but Mara's hand brushed my arm. Not stopping me, just steadying herself. Her touch was shaking. I should go, I said quietly. No, she whispered, too low for him to hear. Then louder to both of us. It's fine. Eli was just leaving. The look she gave me said otherwise. Her son crossed his arms. Sure. Thanks for fixing whatever it is. His tone was polite, but there was something hard underneath it. Protectiveness, maybe. Or recognition. I nodded, heading toward the door. But before I could reach it, Mara said, Wait. Her voice cracked. Her son frowned. Mom. Just a second, she said sharply, then turned to me. Her expression was unreadable, part apology, part something deeper. Can you stay tomorrow? I might need help finishing up. It wasn't about the window. We both knew that. I can, I said. Good. Her shoulders eased. Barely. Then she whispered, tomorrow. Almost like a promise she shouldn't have made. I left without another word. Outside, the rain hit harder, soaking through my jacket before I even reached the car. My phone buzzed a few minutes later, a text from her. He wasn't supposed to come home yet. Then another, don't hate me. I didn't, but I also couldn't shake the image. Her eyes darting between us, fear and longing trapped in the same breath. The next day, I almost didn't go. I sat in my car outside her house, engine running, telling myself to leave. Then the curtain moved. Just slightly, her silhouette framed in the window. She was waiting. I turned off the car and stepped into the rain. When she opened the door, she didn't speak. She just looked at me. Eyes raw, jaw tight, then reached for my sleeve again, same as before. No explanations. No pretending. I can't undo it, she said. Then don't, I said. And she didn't. She closed the door behind me. When the door shut behind us, the rain outside sounded louder. A wall of noise sealing us in. The room felt smaller than before, darker. Neither of us spoke. Mara stood a few feet away, her back to me, one hand braced against the wall. Her shoulders were trembling. Not from cold, but something heavier. I told myself I wouldn't call you again, she said finally. Her voice was rough, the kind that comes after a night without sleep. Then why did you? I asked. She turned, slow. Because you didn't stop me. The space between us was only a few steps, but it felt like miles we'd already crossed in silence. I shouldn't want this, she said, shaking her head. I shouldn't even be thinking about you. Then stop thinking, I said softly. Her eyes snapped up, sharp, almost angry. But then she exhaled, the fight slipping out of her. You make it sound easy. It isn't. I took a step closer. She didn't move. Her fingers twisted in the hem of her sweater, nervous, uncertain. You're too young for this kind of mess, she murmured. I almost laughed. You think that matters now? She looked at me for a long time, eyes glassy, unreadable, before she spoke again. It matters when people look at me and see someone who should know better. I closed the distance between us. Maybe I see someone who's just tired of pretending. That landed. She swallowed hard, her breath catching as I reached up, tucking a strand of damp hair behind her ear. My fingers brushed her skin, warm, trembling. For a second, everything stilled. The air between us was alive, electric. Her gaze fell to my mouth, then back to my eyes. You need to go, she whispered. I will, I said. If you tell me you don't want me here. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her hand lifted instead, slow, deliberate, resting against my chest. I felt her pulse through her palm. This isn't right, she said. But her voice was breaking, the words shaking apart. I leaned closer, just enough for her breath to touch my skin. Maybe not, but it's real. Her eyes fluttered shut. Her hand slid to my shoulder, then stilled there. You'll regret this, she whispered. Maybe, I said, but not tonight. A quiet laugh escaped her, half a sob, half surrender. Then she stepped forward. Not all the way, just enough that I could feel the weight of her against me, her forehead resting near my jaw. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The storm outside pressed harder against the windows. Inside, it was only the sound of our breathing, steady, uneven, human. When she finally looked up, her eyes were wet but clear. I don't want to hide anymore, she said. Then don't. And just like that, something in her loosened, all the guilt, the fear, the waiting. She didn't pull me closer, and I didn't have to. We were already there, the decision made, silent but absolute. Whatever came next, it would change everything. But for the first time, neither of us looked away. Morning came quietly. The rain had stopped sometime before dawn, leaving the streets slick and silver. Light filtered through the curtains, the same ones that started it all, soft and steady now. Mara stood by the window, her hair still damp from sleep, one hand holding a mug of coffee. She didn't look at me right away. You stayed, she said finally. I smiled faintly. You told me to. Her shoulders lifted in a small laugh, tired but real. I did, didn't I? The silence that followed wasn't awkward anymore. It was comfortable, like both of us were getting used to a different kind of quiet, one that didn't need fixing. I walked over, stopping just behind her. The warmth between us felt different now, less charged, more certain. I reached out and touched her hand, the one holding the mug. She didn't pull away. You still think it's wrong? I asked. She turned, studying my face. I think it's complicated. Most things worth it are. That earned me a small, genuine smile. She set the mug down on the sill, then leaned her forehead lightly against my chest. I felt her exhale, long and slow, like she'd been holding her breath for months. I spent half my life worrying about how things look, she said, and the other half pretending I didn't care. And now, she said, looking up, I just want to feel something that's mine. Her hand found mine, fingers slipping between, tentative at first, then certain. We stood there, side by side, watching the clouds drift past the window. For once, there was no pretending. I brushed a thumb over her knuckles. You know people will still talk. Let them, she said. They always do. Her tone was soft, but steady. The kind of strength that doesn't need to prove itself anymore. Outside, a car splashed through a puddle. Somewhere down the street, someone laughed. The world kept going, ordinary and unaware. But inside that small room, everything felt quietly changed. Mara turned to face me, eyes warm, a little teary but peaceful. You make me feel seen, she said. I smiled. You make me want to be better. She laughed under her breath, the sound brushing against my neck as I leaned down. I didn't kiss her, not fully, just rested my lips against her forehead, long enough to feel her smile against my chest. That was enough. No declarations. No promises we couldn't keep. Just two people standing in the aftermath of everything they'd risked, and finding something real left standing. After a while, she whispered, "You hungry?" I nodded. "Starving." She laughed again, lighter this time. "Good. You can fix breakfast." I'm done fixing things for a while. And for the first time since I met her, she looked completely at ease. No walls, no distance, no pretending. Just Mara. And me. And a curtain that finally hung straight. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?